Hey guys, Steve Harris here with MuseThemes.com. Excited today to show you a brand new and powerful widget called Timeline. What Timeline does is it allows you to build these really interactive and beautiful timelines right in Muse. This plugin is open source and it's been used all over the web. So the example I have on screen here is from Time Magazine, and they've used it to build a timeline of Mandela's light. So as you can see, you can click left and right buttons here, and it actually jumps to different areas on the timeline below. You can click right on the items in the timeline below if you want. You can include photos with each of the timeline elements, or you can include any type of media you want, like SoundCloud clips or YouTube videos. You've also got some timeline controls here on the bottom for actually zooming in and out of the timeline itself if you want to clarify some elements, if they're getting kind of tight in certain spots. And it's just a really awesome plugin. To build something like this just from strictly hand coding it would take a long time. And with our widget, you can get this into Muse in a matter of minutes. Now you're probably thinking what I first thought when I saw this, which was how can we build something like this using such a small panel in Muse? But the great thing about this plugin is you're going to do the majority of your setup using a Google spreadsheet and importing that into the widget. So let me jump into Muse and I'll show you how to make this happen. So once we're in Muse, the first thing I'll do, of course, is drag the timeline widget out onto the canvas. And I'm just going to, for now, put it in the top left corner. So the way that this widget works is it can be just a smaller element on the page, or it can be a full screen element. We recommend using it as a full screen element because it can have a lot of interaction problems. This is the biggest JavaScript library we've ever used on a widget. And because it's open source and we didn't build it, there are some things that interact with other elements in Muse that can be tricky. So as much as possible, use this widget on its own separate page as a full screen element and try not to combine it with anything else if you can. Now that we have the widget on canvas, let's go ahead and open up the options panel, and I'll take you through some of the setup here. The first thing you'll see is a Google spreadsheet link. This is really important. This is the link that you're going to provide the widget to your spreadsheet online. Then we have some timeline start position, some full screen options, and two collapsible menus with setup and style options. Below that are two really important links. One is the timeline template spreadsheet link. So you don't need to set up your spreadsheet from scratch. You can use our template to start. Or below that is just some setup info if you need an additional bit of help. So the first thing that we're going to do to get started is let's click on this timeline template spreadsheet link. So when I do that, it opens up this spreadsheet that's a template. And up in the top left, we can click use this template. So when we do that, and assuming you've logged into your Google account, it will ask you to log in if you're not. Then we get this timeline template spreadsheet right here that we can go ahead and edit as we wish. So of course, the first four columns here are for the starting year, month, day, and time. So for example, this event here starts on 2011, November 1st, and then it ends 2011, December 15th. So you can go ahead and put any kind of increment you want in between the start and the end dates. And what that's going to do is it's going to control the kind of size of this bar at the bottom. So the next thing that we'll go through is we have the kind of headline and text options. So this template that you can use here, I'll put this into the widget to show you what it looks like, but it gives you a good example of how to use different types of media. So for this first slide, we have a Flickr image being used. For a later one, we have a Vimeo video or a SoundCloud clip or a YouTube clip. So basically what you're going to do is add in your headline. So for this first one, let's just modify this a little bit and let's go 2011, and the month we'll do 09 and 21. So that's when we actually started Muse Themes. And of course right now it hasn't ended, so we'll just leave that like that. Now a headline, let's go Muse Themes is launched. And I'll go, this marks the date that we launched the website, MuseThemes.com. Perfect. Okay, so once we've got the headline and text in, now we need to look at different media options. So, of course, you can use all these different providers for your media, or if you want, you can just use the URL of a photo that you've uploaded to the web. So the easiest way to do that would be either upload through an FTP program like FileZilla, or you can actually use Muse to do the uploading for you and just grab the URL to put in this area. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. Let me just delete out the Flickr link right there. And I'm going to delete out the caption as well. We don't really need anything in that area. So I'm going to go back to Muse temporarily. And on this same page, or actually, you know what? Let's create another page. I'm just going to create a page beside this, and let's just call it images. I'm going to place an image on the canvas here. So let me just go place, and I'm going to pick an image like this. Okay. And let's just drop it here like that. Perfect. Now I'm going to publish this site up to the web, and I'll just use a temporary BC site. So let's go empty-timeline and click OK. Okay, so now that our site has published, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump to that page that I called images, just like this. There. So there's our image. It's been uploaded to the web. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click on it and go copy image address, just like that. And when I jump back to Muse, or rather when I jump back to my spreadsheet online right there, now what I can do is I can just paste the URL of that right in that column. So see, it's just pasted the exact link to that image in my Muse file. So there you go. That's all we need to do for any image we're going to use. Now, of course, if it's a video or if it's from another site, you just need to include the URL as you find it on that site. And I'll give you more info on this later. So media credit, let's just say Muse Themes. We don't even need the credit. We don't need a caption or anything like that either. Okay. So the last thing that we'll look at here is this final group of columns. We've got type. And when you bring up this drop down, we have the option for a title or an era, or you can have this just be blank. So basically a title allows you to have a slide in your timeline that doesn't need a date. It will always be shown prior to all of the other ones. So if you do have some sort of title slide that you want to show, you could set this first column to say title. Otherwise, just leave it blank. Lastly, the group and background options we don't recommend using. These can just allow you to add some specialized control and change background colors, but you won't need that because our widget handles all of the style. Okay, so now that we've got kind of a sample timeline built here, now we need to publish this to the web. So we're going to go File and Publish to the web. And when we do that, it brings up this box. And what we want to say is we're going to publish a link and the entire document, and then just click Publish. So it asks if we want to, we click OK, and then it gives us the link to copy this. So take this link right here, copy it, jump back to Muse, and on your timeline widget panel, drop that spreadsheet link in there, just like that. So now we've got our spreadsheet linked up to our panel. The next thing I'm going to do before I preview this is I'm going to enable full screen, just like that. And when I enable full screen, I'm just going to drag the widget out so it kind of touches the left and right sides of the canvas, and it's in the top corner. Perfect. So let's preview this in the browser and see how it looks. Okay, so when our preview loads in the browser, you can see here that it's taking up the full screen. We've got our timeline elements on the bottom. This is an example of a Google map that's embedded. And where's our slide that we created? There's a tweet example, and here is our Muse theme slide. So in terms of the order of that spreadsheet, you'll notice this one didn't come first. And if I go back to the original spreadsheet, and let me close this option, you can see the reason for that is because there are other 2011 elements, in fact several, that are before the Muse theme slide that I created. So the spreadsheet is going to use the order of the dates, not the order of the rows. That's an important thing to know. But as you can see, everything is working perfectly, and this widget doesn't require a lot of setup on the actual panel itself. So this is a great spreadsheet to use as an example too, to see how different things can be embedded in your slides. Okay, so jumping into the panel here, let's take a look at some of the options we have to style this widget. So first of all, of course, our spreadsheet URL. Then we have the timeline start position. So do we want this to start on the first slide or on the last slide? So we'll go first slide in this case. Now the next two options are kind of important. We've got first enable slide URL. What enable slide URL does is it gives each slide in the timeline its own URL. So what you can do then is direct link users to different slides in the timeline. If you don't have that enabled, then you've got one URL and it's going to start the timeline at the very beginning. And then the second option we have here is enable full screen, which I ran through earlier. So in terms of these drop-down menus, they're all fairly straightforward in terms of what they do. But basically, they give you more styling control over the timeline. So in the slide settings, to start off, we have slide padding left and right. And what that's going to do is just give you a little bit of padding on the sides here. So you can see that everything's pretty tight to the left and right edge. So you may want to up that padding a little bit. The next option in that menu is we have some background colors. So by default, the slide background color here is set to white, and this is going to be the color for all of the slides. Now you may have noticed in the spreadsheet itself, if I jump back to that, that there is a color or background option here that you can put in a hex value. This spreadsheet area is going to override the default background color we've selected here in Muse. So just make sure that if you don't want to control them on a single basis, that you can just control it here in one shot. Next, we have just the text, styles, and colors. So you can enable custom text colors just like that. And then all you need to do is go through and set the colors for all of your text styles. So we've got first color, font, size, and in the case, we can set it to be all uppercase. Then we could do the headline date colors, and then lastly, the content colors. So the content in this case is what we'd put kind of in this text box in the spreadsheet. And on the examples, you can see that the content would be kind of this area here. Let me go to one that has a photo. This would be the content area there. So that's about it for the styling options in that area on the panel. Let me open it up again and we'll go to the navigation settings. So in terms of navigation settings, we can change the navigation position, and that's where you actually see the individual elements on the timeline. You can have that be on the top or the bottom. You can change the height of that section. And lastly, you can go through and customize all of the colors and background colors and text colors of that area as well. So you can do something really branded that matches the look and feel of the site. So that's about it for the timeline widget setup. As you can see, it's really slick to set this up using that spreadsheet. And the great thing about that approach is that your customers can actually go in, or you as the designer can just go into the spreadsheet and simply update the spreadsheet, and it's going to update the timeline instantly on the site. You won't have to do anything else beyond setting this up one time. So it's almost content management like in that sense. Thanks again for trying out Timeline, and let us know what you think. Cheers.